Did y'all see my new theory? I kind of like it. Um, I was saying about the dude, the Tesla bomber, right? It didn't make a whole lot of sense, right? None of that stuff really added up. Um, and I was thinking about it, and what, like, what if he was somehow, privy to, why is it like that? Oh, I didn't remember. Um, right? Like, not like he was probably, like we said the other day, like he wasn't an engineer or anything, so I'm dubious that he would get, he's not as unlikely as Bob Lazar's story is, right? It's even more likely when he's like not even an engineer, you know? Um, so like that kind of like, uh, you know, I'm not clear on how he would have any kind of insight, even if he was somehow read into the program, right? Um, so then it's like, I mean, but Greer's not really, that's just an addition. That's not why I think this. I mean, Greer just made me think of it. I don't know about Bob Lazar. But anyway, I'm just saying, Bob Lazar's story is that he was brought in because he was an outside the box thinker, and they had all these PhDs who were stalled out, and they wanted him because he was like a DIY engineer. He was like get shit done kind of guy. Um, so they brought him into the program to look and see if he could get them unstuck, and he didn't last long. You know, um, I feel like there's a certain type of psychological profile of people who they pick for these programs, and it's like fucking certain cold fucking like cold steely eyed fucking don't care about you know. Some people have just a revulsion like Grush. Like when Grush found out what was going on, he couldn't help it. He was like, I gotta fucking tell people this is nuts. And I think that's how a lot of people would react. And I think the guys who they have in there on the inside are they're fucking like Obama type sickos. Um, yeah, I know, right? I think that's what John Lear says, right? John Lear says that they told him to spread Czar's story for some reason. And it kind of makes sense, like if they were making breakthroughs at that point, they were like feeling themselves, in the late 80s, early 90s. Um, they could have been like, oh, well, we're actually not working on anything at this place anyway. So we'll have everybody obsessed with Area 51. Meanwhile, we're up here in Alaska, working on our soul eating machine or something, right? Um, that's quite plausible, I think. But yeah, so I was saying, yeah, John Lear says that he was told that they wanted him to do interviews and stuff. Um, I think I was saying the other day, it's like if you know that they want you to do that, would you still do that, even if you wanted to do it? Like if I wanted to do something and then I found out that the CIA wanted me to do that thing, I would have a huge second thoughts about wanting to do that thing, you know? So when I was back to what I was saying. So the dude, Livelsberger, somehow he finds out about this or finds out that there's some exotic propulsion shit going on. Um, because it's like, I feel like that dude, if he was on TV, like my impression of those sort of special forces type guys, like if he was on TV, right? I feel like that would have been the type of thing that like the other sort of like, dudes in those circles would want to impress him, right? So if you were, one of the counterintelligence guys working on that program or something like that, and you had insights, I could see them, showing him some stuff, like if they had, say they met at somewhere, wherever, a bar or whatever. Um, I could see some situation. That's what I was saying about Lazar too. Like, I don't know if that The Czar story seems like it could have happened, just maybe not to him, you know? And I feel like this guy's story maybe could have been something similar. Like he found out about it, but wasn't actually in on it, you know? Um, and then he starts calling around to all these podcasters to try to, like, you know, find his own Ross Coulthart. And when he starts emailing Sean Ryan, you know, the NSA is like, oh, or first of all, they, I'm sure, had access to all of his emails anyway. But in particular, when he starts calling the CIA people, like Sean Ryan, then they're like, okay, we got to move in. Um, so, oh, and also, too, the thing with like Lonnie Zamora, right? Perhaps he was talking like a bonehead and he had these, like, because the way he described it didn't say, first of all, I don't think it's China, right? I think it's fucking NHI. I am not confident. I mean, pretty confident in that. Um, confidence. And so he starts. You know, they find out that he's trying to go public with this. So they grip him up and put him in the Tesla and auto drive him into a fiery inferno. Um, or this doesn't really have anything to do with Greer, right? But like it could sort of line up with Greer. And I said this before, man. People that I previously thought were wrong, I later determined that I was wrong and they were right, right? And especially people who had wild claims. Um, I mean, who knows with Greer though? You know, like I said, he could have been fed bullshit. He could have been pushing his own bullshit. There's a lot of options here. I'm just putting this out there as another explanation because the story didn't really make a whole lot of sense. Like the fact that he was a fucking, special forces, like highly trained, and he has this shitty little explosion, almost like the explosion is not really the point, you know? The point is that they wanted to kill him, like, and spread misinformation. So, like, this whole thing is just sort of like, slathered on top of it to make it seem like, it's like the whole angle that he killed himself didn't make sense anyway. It's like, if you're trying to like blow the whistle on something, why are you killing yourself? Right? You could have just blown the car up and said, yeah, that was me. I blew the car up. Here's why. Right? Killing yourself doesn't really make a whole lot of chance. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And the fact that if he was going to kill himself, why did he have such a shitty IED? Wouldn't he have had a better bomb making just from like shit you could buy at Home Depot? It's not like he couldn't have done a better homemade bomb, right? Um, they tried to tell him there were aliens and he called bullshit on it as a psyop against him. I mean, I think there are though. I think that fucking the so-called drones, I think they are fucking alien craft. I think that lady on TikTok is basically right. Um, and I understand that sounds wild, but I mean, I have a lot of data points pointing me that direction. Um, yeah. Mm, mm, hmm. He killed himself to alleviate guilt from his day job. What, like a production designer or whatever? Um, do cover politics sometimes. Sometimes. Um, and what, you think animals and vegetables are intelligent? Maybe some of them. Not the ones flying the fucking drones. Um, did you see that band liked my tweet? I was like, yeah, I rocked out to this song so hard I went blind. And they were like, fucking faved it. It's cool. No, I mean, that's, I saw, we didn't look at it, but I saw a thread the other day where some dude was saying that he thought, I don't like he said he thought that, but he said it could be an option. The thing about Greer too is like, I fucking the way that he's been sort of like put out there as a target, I feel like for a lot of people, right? So it's like all like Elizondo and all his minions, they are constantly like attacking him and trying to make him look bad, because they're doing disinformation. Yeah, yeah, dude. Did you see that Project Unity post I put too? Right? I think that makes a lot of sense, man. I've always said basically that, right? The TTSA stuff seems like it's made as a limited hangout to sort of the brakes on everything. You know, like all the efforts that Sheehan was doing behind the scenes were starting to bear fruit, and they needed to put the restrictor plate back on there, right? So they put Elizondo and those guys out there who were trying to put their whole premise is like, oh, we see these things in the sky, but we don't know what they are. The government doesn't know what they are. We're just trying to see what these things in the sky are, right? And deny the fact that they've been working on this shit for decades, right? But again, like I don't have any firm, one way or the other. You know how I am. I just like to keep my options open. But I like this new scenario because it makes his death didn't really make a lot of sense to me, right? Like, it's like if you're planning this spectacular death, why not make it, more spectacular? Especially for guys like that, wouldn't he want to show off his skills, right? And the fact that he was like still texting and stuff with his ex-wife or whatever makes me think like maybe that wasn't as painful as it could have been. I know people were saying that like, oh, he got divorced so he killed himself, but I don't know, man. No. The the Patreon one, it wasn't uploading or wasn't updating on the whatchamacallit. Is Chapo doing disinfo? What? That's what I mean, dude. Anarchist cookbook, basic shit you could get from the library would have been a bigger bomb, As a tier 1 contractor, probably did some massacres. Yeah. But he also probably didn't feel the kind of remorse about it that would make him do something like that. Like I said, I totally buy that those type of guys have lifelong, PTSD or whatever. However, the intersection of this spectacular, oh, I'm going to do a bomb at the Trump Hotel and kill myself, like, that doesn't really jive with PTSD sufferer who's so depressed he can't go on, but he's also just uncovered this massive secret and it's mutually assured destruction and all that, right? Also, that sounds like the kind of thing that, like, like the Lonnie Zamora case, they sometimes release wrong details so that they can weed out anybody who's gonna, like Lonnie Zamora, they put out that the symbols that he saw and they shared like different ones, right? He said he saw like hieroglyphic type shit on the craft, and then the shit that they released to the public was not the right one. And then that only came out a few years ago, that ever since then, the only version that's been released has been this fictitious version of it. So that whole thing makes a lot of sense. Like, I think that in most of these big cases, they have, sort of some red herrings mixed in, right? A recent head injury? I don't remember that detail. I don't know. You know me. Like at first, I thought he was full of shit. I thought that was all, bullshit, right? Like now, I don't know what to think. I think like a lot of this time, like the real answer is that like there's, you know, some truth in there mixed in with the lies, and I think the truth is that, yeah, we have some legacy programs working on this shit. But I think that they probably told him it was China, right? Because how would he know who who that was, even if he was on the program and read into it, right? He still wouldn't have additional insights onto who was piloting those craft, right? There's no, it's not like China's got like different color orbs, like it's like the lightsabers. Like China has like the red orbs or something. Although that would be pretty badass if they had like fucking hammer and sickle orbs. um, so like yeah, they he or just like Jeremy Corbell, right? He's got spooky type MFs who are feeding him bullshit, and he trusts them, so he repeats the bullshit. It could have been something like that, right? Um, it's just like the death that just doesn't really fit, and it does make sense too that they would want to get rid of him. Like we saw that there was a bunch of other podcaster types who said that they got emails from him in recent weeks. Um, I think that he was probably, you know, blew up his spot, and like I think the feds were on to him. If he was emailing Sean Ryan, the feds were definitely on to him. If not before that, then definitely after that, right? So like they probably would have killed him anyway, right? Like these legacy MFs, like if he was, um, fishing around for a media outlet to publish his classified information, I don't think they would not have let that happen. You know. Mm. What do you think? What do you find unbelievable about anything that I'm saying? Because I would bet $1,000 your grasp of the details is such that you couldn't discern whether I was whether what I was saying was plausible or not. You know? No. Mm. Mm. Yeah. I punched myself. Mm. No, maybe it didn't work. Mm. Mm. Look, all I'm saying is don't be quick to like dismiss anything that you hear, because if somebody is actually out there telling the truth, every motherfucker with a podcast is going to be saying that guy's full of shit. You know, Greer included. I just find that a lot of people call him a charlatan and they say he's full of shit, but nobody can ever actually point to anything specific that he's been dishonest about. Um, where's my punching bag? There. Wait. Oh, wait a minute. No, hold on. God, no. No. No, it's not it. I don't know, man. Tony set all the sources, the scenes up. I still don't really get what he was doing with them. Oh, here we go. Yeah, there you go. Cool. I mean, that's what I'm saying. Everything we know about him, we learned after the fact. Like after he was already a target. You know, I'm the way I'm kind of tracing the chronology here. And like I said, I don't have a, you know, my gut's not telling me one way or the other. You know, I'm not like a gut feeling kind of guy anyway. Um, I'm like a, you know, preponderance of evidence sort of guy. Um, what? What do you mean? The truth was out there. We would have found it by now. What does that even mean, guys? Definitely don't do what BPG is doing. Right? Do not rely on like, you know, fucking like words of wisdom or, you know, stuff like that. That's definitely not going to lead you to the right answer. Right? It's not your gut, and it's not like, you know, vague generalities like that. Um, yeah. You might know some Voice of America, and they say he had key symptoms of traumatic brain injury. Yeah. I mean, did he go to the hospital? Because, you know, I'm sure he had health insurance, right? He would have gone to the hospital if he had gotten traumatic brain injury. He told his girlfriend of pain and exhaustion after Afghanistan. I mean, yes, that's what I'm saying. All of this stuff, very conveniently, oh, he actually had a traumatic brain injury. I mean, she does kind of have crazy eyes, but whatever. You know, it's like in Elizondo's book, he talks about, like, when he was working at the Pentagon, those guys, the guys working, you know, like the Bigelow set, they approached him to feel him out to decide if they wanted to bring him in as the counterintelligence guy, which by the way is what he does, what he's doing now, right? That's what a counterintelligence guy does, is like, they basically spread lies about the classified programs that they're working on so that people don't find it, you know, points people in the wrong direction. Which certainly appears to be what Elizondo's doing. And by the way, I know we talked about it a little bit, but he got both of Red Panda Koala's channels banned. It was, he did some fucking patent troll thing, like, not patent troll, whatever that's they're called. He lied and said that they did a copyright violation, and they didn't, and it got him fucking banned because they add up. Once you get 3 of them, they take your shit down. He talked about it in his live stream the other day, which I guess is not saved anymore because his channel got deleted. But he did that one video about Elizondo too that we watched, where it went deep into his background. Like, I could see why Elizondo would have a target on that kid, right? What did you say? Valor under fire, military record. But say they brought him into a meeting similar to the one that Elizondo was in, and his reaction to that was to try to go public with it, you know. I think, you know, this would have been, and I think also in situations like that too, where you don't know, like, you know, he's been talking, but you don't know exactly what he's been saying and who he's been saying it to. You can't really like track down everybody that he told and you know, kill them or whatever. You have to just go the other option where you try to smear the dead guy and say, oh, everything he was telling you, it's because he had a brain injury. I know you might have heard some crazy stories from you know, Lieutenant Livelsberger, but just so you know, he had a brain injury like years ago. So everything he said in the past, like, I don't know, 6 months to maybe 10 years, somewhere in there, it's unreliable, you know. College tuition has fallen significantly at many U.S. schools, research finds. I don't know, Voice of America. Mostly bore that burden in private, but recently sought treatment for depression from the Army, according to a U.S. official who spoke on the condition of anonymity. Yeah, wow, look at that. He also found confident in the former nurse who he began dating in 2018. Maybe she was his handler. Alicia or it, to a dating app. Yeah. That, I mean, if I was a spook and I was trying to set up a target with my, with my guy, I would just have the dating app fucking, connect them. It served at Landstuhl in Germany. Blah blah blah. Really? She was just a regular nurse who worked at the army base in Germany. Okay. She saw and treated traumatic brain injuries, or TBIs, which troops suffered from incoming fire and roadside bombs in Havana syndromes. Serious, but hard to diagnose. So, come on, man. Such injuries can have lingering effects that might take years to surface. I saw a lot of bad injuries, but the personality changes can happen later. See? This is exactly what I just said it was going to be. Come on. Like, just very vague about, like, what the symptoms are and when they take effect and what is going to be trustworthy or not. In text and images. Just some concussions, he said in a text about a deployment to Helmand province in Afghanistan. I mean, if you were flirting with a brain injury nurse, you would probably want to talk about your brain injuries. Oh, my brain's all fucked up. I need some help, Talked about... He sent her a photo of a graphic tattoo he got on his arm of 2 skulls pierced by bullets to mark the lives he took in Afghanistan. I mean, that might be true. About exhaustion and pain, not being able to sleep, and reliving the violence of his deployment. My life had been a personal hell for the last year. Again, also something you say if you're flirting with any girl, but especially a nurse. Oh God, I'm so sad. It's like acting all emo, like with your hair in your eyes and shit. It's a well-worn tactic. Let's see. On Friday, Vegas law enforcement released excerpts of messages Livelsberger left behind, showing the way he killed himself was intentional, meant both as a wake-up call and also to cleanse the demons he was facing from losing fellow soldiers and taking lives. Come on. Look at this. Like, and the way that they're like selectively releasing information about him, we released his text messages. Just a couple that we decided on, Exactly. The effects only surface when convenient. Yeah. They can discern, they can say, oh, this is because he's got a brain injury. But not what he said about all those dead civilians. Just the part he said about the Chinese drones. That part's real. Not real. And again, the story about the Chinese drones, right? That I'm gonna have to fucking see the I don't even know what it would take. Like, I'm gonna need to put my fucking finger in the stigmata hole if I'm gonna believe that, whatever that, figuratively speaking, I'm gonna need to put my finger in the hole before I believe it. All right. It's so convenient that it's like basically the one scenario where you can explain it away as a terrestrial, phenomenon, but not one that you're expected to put a stop to. It's like, oh, we would stop it, but it's mutually assured destruction, so we can't. Which, again, is such bullshit. That's the most glaring problem for me, I think, is this. It's just literally the one scenario they could conceivably put out there that would be a prosaic explanation, but not one that they're expected to do anything about whatsoever. you know. Dude, what? Mm, mm, mm. Look, us biblical scholars, because that's what we're scholars of the classics. We know, we get the reference. Okay. I know you might be used to some lowbrow bonehead streamers. Not this one. This is all highbrow. Listen to Screamo and do fucking highbrow dot connecting. Livelsberger's death in front of the Trump Hotel using a truck produced by Elon's Tesla company has raised questions as to whether this was an act of political violence. Yeah, again, this part of it too, I think, is also really suspicious, right? Like this theatrical, Tesla truck at the Trump Hotel, but no, it's not actually related to Tesla or Trump or Elon or any of that stuff. I could see if it was some sort of big anti-Trump thing or big anti-Elon thing or whatever, but that's not a part of it at all, right? There's no sort of anti-Trump or anti-Musk sentiment in any of the released information. So that also doesn't fit, right? Which again, the guy could have come up with a better bomb in about fucking 5 minutes with the stuff that was available in the janitor's closet at the hotel. Right? Why this shitty little fucking bomb that... Well, I mean, I guess it does make the Tesla truck look really better, right? Because that was the first thing I said, was that truck is in fucking perfect condition, you know? I guess maybe that's part of it. I had a Tesla too that I rescued from a junkyard in 2019, and we used to work on it together, bond over it. Okay, that's bullshit too. Again, this Arrett lady is shadier by the minute. Apparently harbored no ill will towards Trump. They were big Tesla fans. Yeah. I don't think you would do that if you were a big Tesla fan. Right? If you were a big Tesla fan, you would... I mean, maybe he was trying to, promote the truck, right? Again, this doesn't add up, man. This does not add up, right? And I get it, fucking people go off the deep end, right? They, whatever. But again, that part of it is plausible to me, that he had a brain injury or he went off the deep end or whatever, sure. But the actions taken in response to that seem so contrived. It seems so contrived, right? Yeah, exactly. Controlling the information flow, exactly. Yeah. Which this guy certainly would have known, right? They stopped talking regularly after they broke up in 2021. She had not heard from him for more than 2 years when he texted her out of the blue on the 28th and again on the 31st. Again, was that actually him texting her? The upbeat messages, including a video of him driving... Oh, yeah, maybe it was. I guess that could probably be AI, though, no? Another one of its dancing headlights can sync up its lighting and music. They felt things very deeply, and I could see him using symbolism of both the truck and the hotel. Yeah, maybe, but the opposite of that, though. Yeah, I mean, or she could just be a dumbass. I mean, I don't think nurses... How do you get hired to work at a military base in Germany if you're not German? Don't they hire Germans for those kind of jobs? Right? He wasn't impulsive. I don't see him doing this impulsively. So my suspicion would be that he was probably thinking it out. And this is the best he came up with. He was planning this, and he was thinking this out, and he came up with this idea to, do a big firecracker bomb. You know? Yeah. And, just... If he could have found better supplies just on his trip from Colorado, right? If he was even, driving. And again, the whole way it just so happens to be a self-driving car that there was all these. Oh, he shot himself in the head first, but then we see the video of him moving around in the car beforehand, right? None of that shit fit. None of that shit does fit. Continues to not fit, right? Served on active duty from 03 to 07. So his trauma from 03 to 07 has just been nagging on him this whole time, and finally he couldn't take it anymore. So he does this 20 years later? Really? He feels so bad about this for 20 years? With Livelsberger, she saw symptoms of TBI as early as 20. So, okay. So, 2007, and then it takes 11 years before his CIA nurse notices any problems? Really? I mean, I don't know about that, dude. I think he was murdered. Yeah, no, I think either he was just a fucking patsy that they, you know, killed for this purpose, or he did find out some information he wasn't supposed to, and he started calling all these podcasters saying, hey, I'm going to talk about these drones, man. I know what they are. You know, perhaps he... I'm still unclear if that was him who wrote that email or not, right? Seems weird, but it could be that just that's the story he was told, so that's the one he was trying to spread. But like, if he's emailing Sean Ryan, I got some explosive information, Sean. You need to have me on your show, right? I think that the counterintelligence people on his whatever programs these are, right? They're going to go after him. Then they're going to take him out after that, right? Because you can't like, I mean, I guess you could lock them up and put them in a black site somewhere or whatever, but there's really only one way to deal with this kind of thing, you know, with like somebody on the inside who's trying to, you know, talk about it. Is you got to delegitimize them and take them out, right? Yeah, I mean, I thought that maybe, right? Maybe the Tesla just blew up, but, you know, doesn't really fit either. Well, that's the email. He said, I know what the drones are. They're Chinese. He said they're Chinese drones, and we have them too, and we can't do anything about it because it's mutually assured destruction somehow. He said that the drones are like, it's like they're you know, it's like your finger on the nuke trigger, which, again, come on, y'all. Does anybody believe that, I mean, China's flying their drones over the East Coast nonstop for a show of force, and it's mutually assured destruction? There's no way that part's true. If you wrote the email, he talked about committing war crimes. I know, but 20 years ago, right? And like, I mean, if your war crimes are eating on you for 20 years, wouldn't he have like gone on the show first before he offed himself? If he's trying to call attention to this thing, and he calls all these podcasters because he wants to go on their shows and tell his story, he just gives up and decides to just blow himself up and shoot himself in the head first and then blow himself up? What? Really? Come on, dude. None of this fits. None of this makes sense. Exactly. I saw that video where he was moving around. Exactly. Most likely situation is what I just said. Yeah. Yeah. I just thought of this a couple hours ago, and it's really, the more I think, the more it fits. He would go through, because we were thinking that Greer was compromised, but I don't know. I mean, he's still compromised because they're using him as a counterweight, but not intentionally. Periods of withdrawal and struggle with depression. We need to know more about this nurse, this Arrett lady, if that is her real name. I don't know what drove him to this, but I think the military didn't get him help when he needed it. But is that really... Do we have anything to go off with that? Because it seems like he would have had 20 years to seek help somewhere and could have done so, and, you know, I don't know if that really makes a lot of sense, that the military didn't get him the help that he needed. I don't think we have anything to demonstrate that. He had a really deep well of inner strength and character, and he just had a lot of integrity. Yeah, so he killed himself 20 years later after doing war crimes. Also, too, the way it's worded in that email doesn't sound like he did war crimes, just more sort of he was complicit in them, which is, I think, even less of a reason to kill yourself 20 years later. And again, if you kill yourself, but you're trying to blow the whistle, you're not going to blow the whistle first. You're going to kill yourself before you just give up and like, oh, you know, They didn't get enough care. He had 20 years to get free health care, and he didn't get the care. The army didn't get him the care he needed, you know. Let's see. Sabrina Singh told reporters it has turned over all of his medical records to local law enforcement and encouraged troops facing mental health challenges to seek care through one of the military support networks. Yeah, there's a lot of those. If you need help, if you feel that you need to seek any type of mental health treatment, or just talk to someone, seek the services that are available, either on base or off. In his case, it would be off base because, again, it's 20 years later. And Livelsberger struggled during the time they were dating. Arrett prodded him to get help, but he would not, saying it could cost him his ability to deploy if he was found medically unfit. Yeah. Maybe. But that also sounds like the kind of thing that, ooh. Yeah, I want to hear someone... We need to remaster this album with somebody who knows how to produce fucking Screamo records. It's just... You can tell it's a really sick song, but it's just that this recording's really bad. A lot of stigma in his unit. Oh, okay. They were, big, strong special forces guys there. There were no weaknesses allowed. Mental health is weakness, is what they saw. She said. Again, like, the way that she's referring to all of this, too, seems really bizarre that she's writing this as if he's still, like, living in the barracks or something. And not, again, out of the army for 20 or 17 years or whatever, and out of the reserves even for 14 years, right? He's been out of the military for a long time, right? He's been removed from that. Since then, he was on TV. He seems like he had a lot of other shit going on, right? Like consulting or whatever. Like, if he was really fucked up from his military service, then wouldn't he have not gone on a Who Wants to Be America's Top fucking mercenary game show? Right? Didn't he literally go on a show that was like showing off his commando skills? But he's so fucked up from his war crimes, and then he goes home and then he goes on this TV show where he's like a fucking soldier of fortune. Come on! None of this fits. 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 At all. I just fucking poked so many holes in the story. Like, it's still going on to... Oh, what was I going to say? There's a long-ass fucking article, too, which... No author, by the Associated Press. Again. It's just like their fact sheet of like, here's the things we need to debunk. And that's what I said. I was like, maybe they'll show up. As I tweeted about it. I was like, maybe I shouldn't have done that. Again, it scared me that they took down both of Red Panda Koala's channels. He was just like reposting. He was interviewing, I guess because he was a dogged researcher, right? He was like, he would find videos online, people would share them, and then he would track down the person who filmed it and bring them on his stream, like in real time, right? If you look at it, I guess it's deleted now, but he had like several weeks of every single night, he would get one of the Jersey people or somebody else or whatever and just interview them about all the details of their sighting, right? Which is, again, what I say to people who say there's like fakes. It's like, no, like I've heard a dozen plus of these witnesses talk about it. Ooh, Mehdi Hassan and God's Gad said, how's that? How do you say that guy's name? You want to watch that for a minute? Anyway, look, I don't know what's going on with this shit.
Look at Elon.
But I know it's not whatever the fuck the voice of this. No, there's more going on here. We don't know it yet. Just keep an open mind, right? Again, because it's like there's some more shit's gonna happen. The story's not over yet. Like it's like this is a good point from Project Unity guy too, by the way. Absolutely zero reason for a highly trained former director of a Pentagon UFO program to confuse a lampshade detect reflection with a UFO mothership and present it to the public. But there are several reasons why a highly trained counterintelligence officer would do that. Like, no, I mean, unless it's like literally like what they said to him, like someone handed it to him and he like hadn't even looked at it yet, I guess maybe, but probably not. I don't think you would make your PowerPoint with like, you wouldn't put a video in your PowerPoint unless you had, you know, some providence for it, you know? Technological reductionism. Uh-oh. I mean, there's that aspect of it too. Yeah.
And there were people who wanted to bring this up, people who were actually getting very close. And then they kind of got kneecapped, they kind of got cut off.
Shit.
And this new thing took over, which, yes, the optics are impressive. We've got Navy pilots, we've got people in the Senate, we've got people in the Congress. But the rate of it, the rate of the actual explosive evidence or information, that slowed down. There was actually quite a significant grassroots civilian movement.
Vince Sheehan's probably in on it too, by the way.
When the New York Times put out a front page story about ATIP and the Pentagon program, and everything started kicking off and it went mainstream from there. So I have a suspicion that this 2017 New York Times, officials getting involved, Congress getting involved, the Senate getting involved, is a way of slowing down a grassroots, more aggressive attempt to get into this subject, because people like Rhea were looking at legal consequences for these, what they call unacknowledged special access programs, these deep
because they wanted to make a thing about
clandestine research and development areas.
Delegitimizing him was part of that, right? Like I said, when you know that he's emailing all these podcasters, right? You can't just take him out. Right? Because you don't know what if he's gone on these podcasts. You don't know who he's talked to. So you have to publicly delegitimize him. You have to publicly demonstrate him as unhinged. He was a wackadoodle. Look what he said about China and shit. Like, right? Like, that I think is part of this. For sure. Right? Yeah, you have to talk about it and say, look at this. This is, and who knows what was going on in New Orleans. That one seems really fucked up too. Maybe they thought like if they did 2 events on one day, then all the attention would be on the bloodier one, and then this one would go by with a little like less attention. Come on, y'all. Where the fuck? Dude, what would y'all do without my takes? I mean, come on. Putting all this shit together. Y'all should be subscribing. Fucking sub should just be popping off like, damn, this guy putting it together. What do you mean? Again, my story is that he somehow finds out details of this program, or maybe we don't even know what he knew, by the way. I'm unsure about the email. So, like, what if he was emailing all these podcasters, telling them some shit, like, oh, bro, I know all about the orbs, it's fucking, it's the aliens or whatever, and he emailed Sean Ryan saying that, and Sean Ryan, being a fucking spook, right, he reports it, and then they have to respond, and like I just said, they have to delegitimize him. They have to make him look crazy on the public stage. Everything he's got, everything he says has to be suspect. You have to assume that, like, oh, he's lying, because you don't know which podcast he's going on. You don't know who he's talked to. You don't know how many people he's told. You can't put the genie back in the bottle, right? You have to ruin the information. The genie has to be killed. You got to kill the genie, okay? Yeah, so maybe the email that we've seen is the subsequent craziest, like that's the evolution of it. What do you mean? Dude, Sean Ryan, he's public about it. He says, I used to be in the CIA, or CIA contractor, he says. So probably he worked for like the Safari Club or some shit, I think this is right. This is all fucking fitting now. Dude, okay. Now everything makes sense. So none of the shit made sense a little while ago, right? I kept saying, I was like, this doesn't fit, that doesn't fit, that doesn't fit. So if this theory was right, this is how it would look. This is how everything would be if what I said was correct. So maybe that doesn't mean I'm right. That I fucking think I got that feeling in my head now where it's all clicking, dude. It's like when I figured out telepathy and the Akashic Records was real, right? And then everything else fit. Dude. Dead serious. They're gonna fucking kidnap me and make me fucking,
My position on this is I've never been definitive
exactly.
with what UFOs are. I'm